Good morning, I'm Dr. Anita. My topic for today is empirical anti-MRSA therapy versus standard antibiotic therapy and a risk of 30-day mortality in patients hospitalized for pneumonia. This article is taken from JAMA Internal Medicine and my moderator is Dr. Sudhindra sir. Introduction. Pneumonia is the leading cause of death from infection in the United States. A limited number of pathogens are responsible for majority of cases for which pathogen is known, but in most cases a pathogen is not identified. The most commonly detected bacterial pathogen is Streptococcus pneumoniae. Other common pathogens include Haemophilus influenza, atypical bacteria like Mycoplasma, Chlamydia, Legionella, etc. Most initial treatment regimens for hospitalized patients with community-acquired pneumonia are empirical. Emergence of resistant organisms, chiefly methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa, has magnified the uncertainty in the choice of empirical antibiotic therapy. Although fewer than 5% of hospitalized patients have resistant organisms detected, more than one-third receive broad-spectrum antibiotics. Some studies have suggested that empirical broad-spectrum therapy may be harmful. It is thus unclear which patients benefit sufficiently from empirical treatment with broad-spectrum agents to warrant such therapy. This study measures the association of empirical anti-MRSA therapy with 30-day mortality for patients hospitalized with pneumonia and compare it with standard empirical therapy including beta-lactams with macrolides or fluoroquinolones. Coming to aims and objectives, the primary objective of the study was to evaluate 30-day risk of death in patients hospitalized for pneumonia who were receiving empirical anti-MRSA therapy plus standard antibiotics and was compared with those receiving standard therapy alone. This study also examines the risk of 30-day mortality among all patients as well as subgroups that may expect greater benefit from an empirical anti-MRSA therapy. So the study population was divided into different subgroups based on the risk of developing MRSA infection. Methods, study design, setting and participation. This was a retrospective cohort study of all hospitalizations for community onset pneumonia in the Veterans Affairs healthcare system from January 1, 2008 to December 31, 2013. An ICD-9 code for pneumonia was used for identifying the cases. Exclusion criteria: patients who were not administered an antimicrobial within the first day of hospitalization and patients who were hospitalized with pneumonia in the previous month and who were transferred from other acute care facilities were excluded from this study. And the study was reviewed and approved by the University of Utah Institutional Review Board and the Research and Development Committee of the VA Salt Lake City Healthcare System. This is the study population: 1,28,748 hospitalizations for pneumonia from the year 2008 to 2013 were collected, out of which 15,891 were excluded due to different exclusion criteria mentioned above. The remaining were 1,12,857 hospitalizations, out of which 24,252 were hospitalized patients didn't receive empirical regimen with standard regimen or anti-MRSA therapy. So the final study population comprised of 88,605 was divided into three groups depending on the treatment they received. So 54,973 patients received empirical standard therapy, 13,528 patients received anti-MRSA therapy plus standard therapy, and 20,104 received empirical anti-MRSA therapy alone. Study data and measurements. Primary exposure of interest was treatment with anti-MRSA therapy, which included vancomycin hydrochloride or linezolid, plus guideline recommended standard antibiotics, which included beta-lactam and macrolide or tetracycline hydrochloride or fluoroquinolone, and the control therapy was taken as standard therapy alone. Because many patients received anti-MRSA therapy without standard antibiotics, they also evaluated this strategy as an additional treatment group. Patients were classified according to the treatment they received on the first calendar day of hospitalization. The primary outcome of interest was all-cause mortality within 30 days of hospitalization. Death data was obtained from the vital status file, and patient demographics, clinical risk factors for resistant organism, and features associated with illness severity were extracted from the electronic health record. As the primary outcome is all-cause mortality, comorbidities which can affect the results like age, sex, renal disease, liver disease, congestive heart failure, cerebrovascular disease, neoplastic disease, immunocompromised conditions, residence at a nursing home, wound care, number of hospitalization or antibiotic therapy in the past 60 days, history of MRSA colonization or infection in the past year, tube feeding, all these details were collected. Lab test results between 12 hours and 24 hours after admission like urea, creat, glucose, potassium, sodium, WBC count, hematocrit, platelet, albumin, bilirubin, etc. were collected because these could influence both the initial treatment decision and final outcome. Similarly, worst vital signs within 12 hours prior to the time of treatment assignment was also taken like minimum and maximum heart rate, minimum systolic blood pressure, maximum respiratory rate, minimum oxygen saturation. MRSA culture and PCR surveillance data occurring within the first 2 calendar days and year prior to the admission was extracted to identify the risk of getting MRSA infection. Clinically relevant positive MRSA culture was defined as one occurring within the first 2 calendar days from the day of admission from blood or a respiratory source. Some of the vital signs and lab tests were missing, and this occurred only in less than 5% of all cases and was treated as missing at random and imputed with median values. All missing lab values were imputed with normal values. Statistical analysis was done from June 14 to November 20 of 2019. Primary analysis was an inverse probability of treatment propensity score weighted analysis. Treatment propensity score is the chances or the tendency of giving a particular treatment to the study population. This was calculated using 41 patient characteristics in this study, and after giving appropriate weightage according to its importance. The mean treatment effect for the entire population on 30-day mortality was established after primary analysis. This is a graph, it's a balanced plot graph showing the patient characteristics before and after weighing. So the characteristics is said to be adequately balanced if the standardized differences were less than 0.2, and in this study it was adequate. This graph shows the density curve demonstrating relative distribution of propensity scores for treatment with anti-MRSA therapy with and without standard antibiotics. So the graph on the right shows more overlap than the graph on the left, meaning during this study the study population had more chances of receiving anti-MRSA therapy alone when compared with anti-MRSA therapy with standard antibiotics. Subgroup analysis was done to see an association between treatment and death for different patient groups. Here also weighted propensity score analysis was applied to 4 subgroups of patients who might warrant empirical anti-MRSA treatment. So the study population was divided into 4 subgroups based on initial admission to the ICU, clinical risk for MRSA detection, positive initial results for MRSA PCR surveillance screening, and positive results for a clinical culture for MRSA. It is possible that residual confounding factors owing to unmeasured patient characteristics, that is mental status or radiographic findings, may bias the estimates of the association of anti-MRSA therapy with mortality. Physicians have also assigned anti-MRSA therapy to patients whom they perceive to be at greater risk for infection and death, and this perception may have been influenced by factors which were unavailable in the electronic health record. So in view of this risk, secondary analysis was carried out. Sensitivity analysis incorporating anti-pseudomonal antibodies. Since the receipt of empirical anti-MRSA therapy often coincided with receipt of anti-pseudomonal therapy, the association of anti-MRSA therapy and anti-pseudomonal therapy was measured separately with 30-day mortality using weighted propensity score analysis. Examination of secondary outcomes. Apart from primary outcome, that is all-cause mortality, outcomes like kidney injury, incident or recurrent Clostridium difficile infection, vancomycin resistant enterococcus species and gram-negative rods in blood and urine cultures were also considered as other outcomes, and association between anti-MRSA therapy and these outcomes were estimated. For kidney injury, it was defined as an increase in creatinine of 0.3 mg per deciliter or 50% from the initial creatinine level, and for Clostridium difficile infection, detection of toxin without previous positive test results for toxin in the past 14 days was used. And for examining secondary outcomes, weighted propensity score analysis was applied between 48 hours and 30 days after hospitalization. Coming to results, this is a table showing patient characteristics and outcomes by treatment groups. So out of 88,605 patients, 54,973 received standard antibiotics alone and the rest of them received anti-MRSA therapy. So while comparing the association between anti-MRSA therapy and 30-day mortality with that of standard antibiotics alone, you can see that comorbidities like renal disease, congestive heart disease, neoplastic disease and risk of getting MRSA infection was higher in those treatment group which took anti-MRSA therapy. All-cause mortality was also higher among this group when compared to standard therapy. This is a table showing the primary analysis, that is propensity score weighted marginal probabilities of 30-day mortality. In this table we can see that the treatment group which received empirical anti-MRSA treatment plus standard therapy and the treatment group which received anti-MRSA treatment is having higher risk of 30-day mortality when compared with standard therapy. The same thing was applied in subgroup analysis, which showed that adjusted risk ratio for 30-day mortality was higher in the treatment group which received anti-MRSA therapy without standard antibiotics. Similar analysis was carried out for anti-pseudomonal therapy and anti-MRSA therapy and was compared with standard antibiotic therapy, and both these therapies were found to be separately associated with higher risk of 30-day mortality. Use of empirical anti-MRSA therapy was associated with other secondary outcomes like higher risk of kidney injury, Clostridium difficile infection, vancomycin resistant enterococcus species infection and secondary gram-negative rod detection. Discussion. Mortality benefit of empirical anti-MRSA therapy was not established in this study. Potential source of harm from vancomycin, which accounted for 98% of the anti-MRSA therapy in this study, included renal toxic effects, allergy and superinfection. Future studies should extend the work presented here to examine treatment decisions during the post-empirical treatment phase, such as de-escalation as well as dosing and therapeutic drug monitoring, which were not examined in this study. Identifying optimal antibiotic decision-making strategies for patients merits further research. Limitations of the study. There could be possibility of residual confounding factors which could have affected with the results of the study. Anti-pseudomonal therapy was found to be associated with the 30-day mortality, but this requires further investigation. Diagnosis codes were assigned at the end of the hospitalization. That means some of the patients who were not given the diagnosis of as pneumonia in the initial period were also included in this study. 2% of patients in the population received a different antibiotic in the emergency department. Study population is disproportionately male, and although no differences in antibiotic effect have been reported, women have different outcome patterns from men in pneumonia. Study population had less number of patients who received linezolid to compare its separate effect. Conclusions: eagerness to improve outcomes, particularly for critically ill patients, we adopt practices that may have plausibility and promise but lack significant evidence or validation. Once adopted, these practices become norms that persist despite cautionary studies. The strategy of early broad-spectrum antibiotics for pneumonia has become the norm. The underlying assumption of this approach is that the benefit of more potent antibiotics during the empirical phase exceeds the harm. This study questions this assumption. More evidence informing antimicrobial decision will enhance our ability to accurately treat our patients. This national cohort study did not find a mortality benefit of empirical anti-MRSA therapy versus standard antibiotics for any group of patients examined, even for those with risk factors for MRSA infection. Administration of empirical anti-MRSA therapy for pneumonia using current approaches should be reconsidered even in high-risk patients. Cross-references: this is a similar article which concluded that vancomycin was associated with higher 30-day mortality and incidence of kidney dysfunction than any other anti-MRSA agents. This is another article showing similar results, suggesting that empirical MRSA therapy in ICU community-acquired pneumonia patients may not improve outcomes. This is the current recommendation for community-acquired pneumonia patients. For hospitalized patients who are not requiring ICU admission, initial combination therapy with anti-pneumococcal beta-lactam like ceftriaxone, cefotaxime, ceftaroline plus a macrolide like azithromycin or clarithromycin is given. If the patient cannot take beta-lactam plus a macrolide, then monotherapy with respiratory fluoroquinolone is given. Coverage for Pseudomonas or drug-resistant pathogens such as MRSA should be included in patients with risk factors. And doxycycline may be used as an alternative to macrolide in patients with high risk of QT interval prolongation. This box A shows risk factors and other conditions that generally indicate a need for empirical therapy. For MRSA, the risk factors are septic shock, respiratory failure requiring mechanical ventilation, gram-positive cocci in clusters on good quality sputum gram stain, known colonization or prior infection with MRSA, receipt of IV antibiotics during hospitalization in the prior 3 months, recent influenza-like illnesses, necrotizing or cavitatory pneumonia, presence of empyema, risk factors for MRSA colonization. And for Pseudomonas, it is gram-negative bacilli seen on good quality sputum gram stain, known colonization or prior infection with Pseudomonas, receipt of IV antibiotics during a hospitalization in the prior 3 months, structural lung abnormalities like bronchiectasis, and frequent COPD exacerbations requiring frequent glucocorticoid or antibiotic use. And for patients who require ICU care, initial combination therapy with anti-pneumococcal beta-lactam plus IV therapy with azithromycin is given. For patients who cannot take azithromycin, a respiratory fluoroquinolone is added as a second agent in combination with beta-lactam. For patients with MRSA risk factors, addition of either vancomycin or linezolid is given. Thank you.